Hello and welcome back to my channel. For this card, I am using a couple different Lawn Fawn products to complete a card for the Lawn Fanatics Challenge. To start with, I have the stamp sets Baked with Love and Some Bunny. So for this card, I knew I wanted to do a little baking scene, so I have stamped and cut some images that I want for my baking scene. And I have picked a very limited color palette. So basically it's just varying shades of pink and some gray. So here I am very sloppily coloring the stand mixer, and I obviously wouldn't color it quite this sloppy if it was going on the front of the card where you could see it. I'm just coloring this to go underneath something else, so you're really not going to see anything other than maybe the edges. So for this, I have a second stand mixer stamped and cut, and I've already colored it off screen. And I am going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to cut out the center of the bowl, as you see here. This is not perfect, but it worked well enough. So now I have the top and the back piece for my little mini shaker. I'm going to do this 2 more times, once with the piping bag and then another time with the sprinkle shaker. I know when I make cards, if I don't show the mistakes, it looks like I just had a super easy time and I knew exactly what I was doing when I made a card. But I make mistakes all of the time. Like here, you see that pink spot on the belly? That was unintentional. My finger had some pink ink on it and I transferred it. Thankfully, it transferred to the belly, which seems like the most acceptable spot to have a giant pink spot on a bunny. And I'm just softening it with a little bit of my lightest gray marker, so that it's not so harsh and you kind of lose some of the fingerprints that were in it. But yeah, that was an accident. I don't normally color my critters with a pink belly, but this one got it, and it was all accidental. Most of my cards are not fully completed without at least one issue. I am trying to get in the habit of not scrapping something and starting completely over from scratch, and I try to save as much as possible. Here I was trying to stick with my color scheme, so I'm making pink sugar, I guess? I don't know. It just needed to be pink so that it didn't blend in with the countertop. Moving on, we're going to work on the little shakers. I have cut out acetate for each of the shapes. I'm just doing it for the mixing bowl instead of the entire mixer because, well, there's no reason for it to be on the entire mixer. So I'm just going to glue that down. I have done the same thing with the piping bag and the little sprinkle shaker, which, by the way, was a little bit tedious. It was not quite as bad as cutting out the outlines for the shaker windows, though. Now, instead of foam tape, because I didn't want a lot of bulk, I have actually just cut scrap pieces of cardstock and doubled those to create a relatively thin shaker. I am using paper hearts that I have die cut from various colors of pink cardstock using the Say What gift tag die set from Fawn, and those will be my little shaker bits. Because I have cut so many hearts, I am using some of the extras for decoration on my cake stand, which I think just makes it look that much cuter, as well as the stand mixer. Now, because these images were cut around the line, you can see some of the white areas where it wasn't perfectly cut. So to kind of disguise that, I'm using a black brush pen and going around the edges. Now, here's a look at all the hearts that I have cut out. It's a ton. I still have a bunch left. I'll have to figure out something to do with. I'm just going to use my jewel picker, and I am going to put each little heart individually inside each little shaker because there's not a lot of space anyway, and the die cut pieces do have a more rounded edge at the front where it was pressed into, and then the back looks a little bit rough because my die cutting plate for the bottom is very rough. Like, I'm surprised it hasn't broken yet. It is just really on its last leg. Now, since there's hearts in the piping bag, I figured there needs to be hearts on the cupcakes. So I am also going to individually place several of the little hearts on each of the cupcakes, varying them in colors so that it looks random. From white cardstock, I have cut out the quilted heart backdrop. This is the landscape die. I have cut it down a little bit so that it's not so big. I also have a dark gray piece of cardstock and a smaller white piece of cardstock. This will be the countertop and the cabinet, and the cabinet portion I did run through an embossing folder that's like a wood grain pattern just because I thought it would give it some interest without doing too much. I've also, from that same die set that I have cut out the countertop and the cabinets, I have cut out some doors, or I guess a door and a couple of drawers. Now, this did require some creative placement with the dies to get the stitched look around all areas and get it the size that I wanted. Here I'm just showing the Say What gift tag. I don't know why I showed that so late, but anyway, these are some of the bigger hearts that I am going to use for the knobs on both the door and the drawers. Now, here you see me, I had placed that one heart on the door off to the side, which I intended on doing, and then somehow I got that all mixed up and I put it in the center. So, whoops, another mistake. It looks fine though. Now, for my sentiment, this is from the Baked with Love stamp set, and I used Ballet Slippers ink to stamp it, which I think worked really well, but it was a little too light, so I will go back over it later with a Cricut pen. Now, the fun part that I always have slight anxiety over is gluing all the pieces together. I started gluing the little cupcakes to the stand to make sure that they were all in the right place, and then I had less to worry about. So I did have to add some scrap cardstock to some of these elements to get them to not be smushed down at the top where there's different layers of cardstock, if that makes any sense. I feel like I'm just saying words and they don't make sense anymore. All right, so I placed everything down and now I'm just tracing out my sentiment, which was a little bit nerve-wracking, to be honest. I'm not super great with my penmanship. Even tracing, I felt kind of uncomfortable. But in the end, it turned out fine. So, lucky me. I had enough issues. I'm just using my light gray Copic to kind of give everything a little bit of a shadow. And then after that, this card is done. So now I have 3 little mini shakers on my card. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll be back with another video soon. Bye!